Now, wait a minute. When the Rockets opted to move on from Chris Paul, they actually caught the storm at the perfect time, right? No pun intended. The Thunder. They caught the Thunder at the perfect time. You catch OKC put in this peculiar situation, moving on from Paul George. So you're thinking, okay, Thunder in full rebuild mode. You trade Paul George, and you got the Thunder, you got the Rockets offering you Chris Paul, a vet, injury-prone guy, right? That's why the Rockets moving on from him. He was not able to stay healthy for James Harden. It's a fact. Had Chris Paul been able to stay healthy a couple years ago, the Rockets definitely get past the Golden State Warriors in the conference finals. We can all agree there. The Rockets had the Warriors beat that year. Up 3-2, hammy. Chris Paul can't play on it. You trade Chris Paul to OKC. OKC's clearly going in rebuild mode. And the Rockets are going full throttle with two of the guys who always go full throttle. Two of the NBA's most lethal, aggressive, scoring, it's former MVPs. They were teammates in the past with Kevin Durant. You go put Westbrook and Harden together. This thing is either going to work or it's going to be really, really bad. It's going to really, really work or be really, really bad. Now, the Rockets find themselves at an important Game 7. If the Rockets do not win this Game 7, Daryl Morey has stood up for his guy James Harden over and over again. But I'm not so sure Daryl Morey or Mike D'Antoni keep their jobs. If the Rockets do not beat the OKC Thunder, who again, that team traded Paul George, loaded up on draft picks, right? Loaded up on draft picks, though they did get Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a project. He's good, be clear, but he's a project, right? You're thinking long-term with him. They save a crap ton cap room. They trade Westbrook. They bring in Chris Paul. Again, this was supposed to be a rebuild. This is supposed to be, we trying to trade Chris Paul too. It's supposed to be, we keep Chris Paul in the locker room as a mentor for maybe half a year, however long we got to keep him, and then we get rid of that contract. If the Thunder are able to advance to the second round, going half throttle, and the Rockets went full throttle, I think the legacies of Russell Westbrook and James Harden will be tainted forever. And I hate that because Harden ain't even playing bad ball. But what happened late in that game, you got Russell Westbrook with two pivotal turnovers down the stretch, as James Harden had a pretty good night, a pretty good second half, can't even get the basketball. Two bad plays from Russell Westbrook. This is what people were afraid of when these two got together. Can you realize that the other guys got the hot hand and allowed the guy with the hot hand to be the guy that night? There was no reason for Westbrook taking those shots down the stretch. I know he had tied the game up at 100, I believe, or gave the Rockets a 2-point lead, but it was Harden's night. He had the hot hand. He was the more aggressive. He was the guy that put fear in the Thunder's eyes last night. And if Westbrook can advance to the second round, like Harden was getting to the second round with Chris, and Chris had half a leg. And another part of this conversation, to be fair to Harden, is it looks like Chris Paul has rededicated his body. And that's kind of whack to me, right? Because Harden ain't get the Chris Paul that Oklahoma City's getting. Like, Chris Paul looks a couple pounds skinnier, and he looks like he put the work in. Chris Paul pretty much played every game this year. Harden was having to go out and play without Chris in the regular season, and then he couldn't even stay healthy for the postseason. Harden was like, damn, are you ever healthy? So I got to give Harden a little bit of a slack that was whack. Like, doesn't Chris understand? You would have never been traded from Houston if you could play what you're playing with OKC right now. He's clearly taking better care of his body right now. He's clearly motivated, more energized, and he clearly was taking James Harden for granted. This is an important Game 7. Chris Paul's legacy doesn't need it, this Game 7. It would be nice. It would be impressive. He doesn't need it. I assume at some point Oklahoma City, I think they're going to move on from Chris and trade him probably to the Lakers. I assume that in the next year or so. I believe that, right? Or Philly. Look out for Philly. They might do a Chris for Ben Simmons swap. But Harden and Westbrook got to have this round. Everybody's already talking about the Lakers Rockets in the second round. The Rockets got to win this Game 7. It is point blank. Y'all got to figure this one out. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care who you got to foul. Y'all better figure this one out. Ironically, y'all playing together only heightens the storyline that Chris Paul is a better leader without playing with a Harden, and also the narrative that Westbrook and Harden, they just better by themselves, can adapt to another star, and will never win big in this league.